Okay, everybody, on this week's Hard Hat Highlights, we're going to go over some of the things that we've learned, came across, maybe even we're frustrated with in our day-to-day operations over the last week. And of course, we have some headlines that we want to touch on, quite a few mind-blowing ones, but also some educational ones. So Jason, good to see you again. Always love getting on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about what has happened to us over the last week and a half in our day-to-day operations that has stuck out to you that you think maybe some people can extrapolate something from or learn something from.
Well, we just recently installed the largest piece of glass we've ever installed. And this was 1.25 inch thick insulated glass.
What's the makeup of that? So for anybody who knows, insulated glass is 2 pieces of glass with an airspace in between. So the overall thickness from this side to this side is 1.5 inches.
1.25 inches.
1.25 inches. So it's made up of 3/8 over 3/8 with a 1/2 inch airspace.
That's right.
How heavy was that?
It was roughly 1,150 pounds.
So just shy of 1,200 pound single piece of glass.
Over a half ton.
Holy shit. It was amazing. So what was your feeling going into it? Obviously, you and I have never installed a piece of glass that big.
Anytime you have something like that's something new, but it's just massive because they just keep getting bigger and bigger.
Every year.
You always have this agita going into it, like, I just want to fucking get this done.
Yes.
I just want to get it off my chest. And everything's going to be fine, but there's always that little bit of doubt in your mind, like, what if the one side of the insulated, comes apart as we're lifting it or, anything. There's so many things that could happen. But we got it done with the help of Great Lakes Lifting.
A big shout out to not only Stephen Brooks and his father who owned Great Lakes Lifting, but their Orlando office.
Danny
came down. First of all, customer service off the Richter scale. Information and knowledge regarding the manipulating machine that is going to hoist this massive piece of glass. He was well ahead of it. You could tell he was a seasoned professional. I don't know that we could have did it without him.
I agree.
So huge shout out to Great Lakes Lifts. Anybody that's looking to manipulate stone or glass, it's a no-brainer. We will never not rent one of these machines. And hopefully if we end up doing a lot of these, end up buying one, just because of the preservation of our backs, the quality control, it's just safer. It just all around was a great experience. Yep. But to piggyback on that, you and I have been working together installing for probably a little over 25 years. I know 20 years down here, but even up north.
Right.
Anytime you and I are going into a job that we've never done before, every single time, even though I have the utmost confidence us and our team are going to crush it, the night before, I never get a good night's sleep. And it's not because I'm nervous. It's almost like this nervous excitement. Like I can't stop thinking about it. I'm worrying what could happen, what couldn't happen, how good is it going to go? Is it going to go bad? I just toss and turn all night. And I was very excited to see we got that in there. Everything was safe. Tomorrow is a big day for us as well. I know by the time people see this, it'll already be complete, but I will never not move a piece of glass like that again without one of those manipulating lifts, for sure.
100% agree.
Yeah.
There's no way. I don't know that we could have safely physically done it.
Okay.
Even with several people.
So that's a positive story that we had over the last week.
Absolutely.
Why don't you give me one that might have reminded us of having to keep sharp and being good listeners, maybe. And I have to say it's probably my fault that this next story we're going to talk about, I probably missed a certain cue, but why don't you unpack that story real quick?
Yeah, you definitely want to make sure you stay sharp and know the person you're dealing with. Oftentimes, I'm sure people say, "Oh yeah, it'll be fine. I'm the man.
I'm the
or
decision
woman,
maker.
I'm the decision maker. Everything's good to go. And we fell into that trap, unfortunately. We had a situation where it was a dire need. It was needed immediately. No one else could do it. It wasn't something necessarily that we would normally do, but in the essence of helping and getting the project done, we offered to do so. We provided a price.
Way quicker than we normally would, too. I mean, we acted on this quick.
From time of visit to time of pricing, it was probably no more than an hour and a half.
From the incoming call to going to the job site to returning a proposal to them, it was less than an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And they approved it.
Yes. The decision maker approved it. And we juggled a schedule around to accommodate getting there the very next day. So we moved some stuff to get there the very next day. And then what happened?
15 minutes before the arrival of these guys, the so-called decision maker called back and said, boss man wants to go a different route and he's going to shop it. And the reason why I was so irate over that was shame on me for falling into the trap of thinking he actually was the typically when someone goes out of their way to say that they're the decision maker, they're anxious to say that because they're actually not the decision maker.
It's usually the other way around.
100%. When people say I'm not the decision maker, it's because they're deflecting and they don't want to be pinned into a corner.
Right.
And so that was a big lesson there. And it really killed the next morning for our installers. And all of you out there that deploy service technicians out into the field, your schedule is everything. You got something scheduled for the next day, they load up, they're gone for the day, you can start working on the rest of the week. Well, when that was stripped from us, now we have this void where we're no longer doing our sales and follow-up and drawings. We're now scrambling around to find work, which actually ended up working out well for us that day. But that was a big lesson learned there.
Yes.
On being able to communicate at a high level on the front end of the deal to ensure that it's not stripped from us at the last minute. And I know you can't always stop that, but there was enough signals on this one that I should have caught it. I mean,
And what were some of those signals?
Okay, here's one. When I got out to that job site, aside from him saying he was the decision maker on the phone,
Yeah.
when I got to the job site, it was a fucking pit. And I say that from a position of I actually go out of my way when I see nice job sites. I usually make a piece of content about it. So I am actively looking for that. And there's an old saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I think that is a perfect, I didn't call it adage for this scenario, because when I got there, it looked like somebody emptied the construction dumpster inside the house and just raked it all around. I mean, it was that disgusting. And that is just another red flag of how the organization is probably operating. They're probably shopping on price. They're doing everything last minute. They're not necessarily seeking out the best subs. They're usually seeking out the cheapest. And with that comes a whole nother layer of problems. So aside from him calling, saying he was the decision maker, going out to the job site, seeing it to be a pit, I probably should have dug down a little bit further before we really jumped the gun to give him this exceptional customer service.
That's a great point that you brought up about going with the lowest bidder. When you're looking to do a quality job, you're only as good as your worst sub. Not your best sub, your worst sub.
Yes.
Because it's a trickle-down effect.
There's these homes or mid-level rises or commercial projects have anywhere from 120 to 250 subcontractors, different subcontractors that are going to be going through the job, and each one will have something to do with the next one.
Right.
And you're right. It's like throwing a rock into a pond. That ripple effect is going to happen. And so, shame on me, lesson learned. Being emotionally intelligent or situationally aware is definitely a perishable skill. And a lot of times I have to be reminded of that. And this was I think it was a good example. It could have been a lot worse for us, but it was a good reminder. Plus, it makes for good content.
Yep.
Seeing we're on that note, just real quick, I wanted to ask you, so my kids asked me this the other day, and this was an interesting question. What is one of your biggest pet peeves? And I'm going to tell you one of mine real quick so you kind of know where I'm going with this.
Okay.
And it can be in anything, whether it's in business, in your personal life, whatever. I travel a lot behind the windshield, going to jobs as you do. When I'm on I-75, which is a highway for all of you that aren't here in Southwest Florida, it's our main highway. 3 lanes going south, 3 lanes going north. I have a heavy foot. When I'm in the passing lane, which is the far left lane, my biggest pet peeve is somebody that's doing exactly the speed limit or even worse, under the speed limit in that fucking lane. As far as I'm concerned, that person should be in jail. And even today when that's happening, usually when they're in that lane going that slow, when you drive by, they're even on their phone.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in Europe, like on the Autobahn, you've been on the Autobahn, you'll actually get a ticket if you're caught even driving in that lane if you're not passing somebody. So you're driving in that lane, you pass someone, you get over, you leave that lane open because it's meant for a passing lane.
That's technically the way it's supposed to be here in the States.
I do that, not necessarily because that's what it is. I always feel like if there's a cop in the median, they're usually looking for the speeders probably in that fast lane, right? So I usually like to get over and put myself into the middle lane because in case there's someone that is flying by, they can go ahead and do that. That's what the lane's for. But that's one of my biggest pet peeves is people driving slow or at least doing the speed limit in the passing lane. Bobby Burke, you know Bobby Burke,
I do.
Cop from Agawam, Massachusetts, used to tell me, if you're doing 9, you're fine. 10, you're mine. So you should at least be doing 9 miles an hour over the speed limit, and then get the hell over so people like me can go by much faster and get to our jobs on time. What's one of your biggest pet peeves?
Well, oddly enough, I have 2
let's hear 'em.
that are both centered around driving as well.
Okay.
Probably because we spend a lot of time behind the windshield.
Yeah.
So the first one, now with the newer vehicles, it's not as egregious, but it used to drive me up a fucking wall when you're driving at night and somebody does not have their headlights on nor their parking lights, because that means your dash lights aren't on. How the fuck do you not know that your lights aren't on?
Maybe a little road soda, sipping the sauce.
Or maybe open your eyes? So that's one. And
Do you see that a lot?
I
Or
still
enough.
see it. I still see it enough. And actually, now with the new vehicles, the dash lights are typically on all the time. And a lot of times the headlights are automatic.
Yeah.
So I can understand where if the dash lights are lit up, maybe they don't realize that their lights aren't on, especially if it's a well-lit road. But in the past, it wasn't like that, and it drove me nuts. But the other one, and this is a big one here, especially there's an area near my house when you're getting off of I-75, like we talked about. You get off, there's 2 left-hand turn lanes. So you wait at the light, and you go, and you take a left-hand turn. Every fucking time somebody in the left-hand lane, when you're both turning left, cuts into the middle lane, right
Gets
into
a
your
little
middle
wide.
lane. Literally doesn't get a little wide. Goes into that lane. Just doesn't stay in their lane.
Are you on the horn?
Oh, yeah.
You're a horn guy?
Oh, yeah.
Bryce is a horn guy.
Yep.
To the point where his horn on his last car didn't work anymore. He used it so much. So he's a combination horn, middle finger guy. Did you do the finger or just the horn?
I don't do the finger anymore.
Why?
You're looking at it right here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just while we're on that subject, do you still, because maybe the younger generation doesn't know this, but if you see a speed trap and you go by it and you don't get pinched, are you giving everybody the little ding, little flashers to kind of remind them that
I think
there's a cop? I actually still do that in certain situations.
I was going to say, I think it's kind of a mood thing.
I agree. You know, what kind of mood am I in? Am I helpful mood? Am I wanting to put out some good juju so I get some good karma back? Sometimes I'm also afraid, though, because some savvy cops will sit there and then they'll have another one further down looking for people to do that.
Is that illegal?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I don't know what they could pull you over for doing that, but I've seen it. Just like cutting through a gas station. If you're at a light and instead of waiting for a right-hand turn, you kind of cut through the gas station.
Yeah.
They could pull you. But I got pulled over for that once. I says, I was going to get gas and realized I didn't have any money on me. Like, how are you going to prove that?
And then he says, "What's that?"
Yeah, and he smashes my light and says, "No, you got a tail light out." So yeah, I think that's a mood thing. All right, so let's get into some of the headlines. What why don't you start us off?
So something that stuck out to me this week. I know you didn't get a chance to watch it live, but the Major League Baseball All-Star game.
Oh yeah, I did go back and watch it though.
Okay. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen this.
Yeah.
The Home Run Derby.
Oh my gosh.
National anthem was country music star Ingrid Andress.
Who I had never even heard of.
I think a lot of people, even within the country music world, now she was nominated, I believe, for 4 Grammys.
That's unreal.
But even within the country music world, I don't think a lot of people knew who she was. And I mean, I think back, there's the Roseanne Barr, there's the Fergie national anthem. There's a couple of them out there that really stood out. This one blew it out of the water.
Especially for someone who's a recording artist.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was bad. If you have not heard it, you need to go back and listen to it.
Yeah.
As much as you can stand it, anyways.
Yeah.
It was to the point where they were showing some of the players, and the players were laughing.
It was cringe.
Yeah, it was like I couldn't sing that bad on my worst day, and I'm no singer.
I would agree. So, has there been any
that I'm
reports?
no singer, or that it was bad?
I don't think you're a good. Actually, I take that back.
Fuck you.
You used to do a lot of really good Ozzy covers, so I will, like Bark at the Moon. Was she drunk?
So she came out after all the scrutiny and came out with a statement and said, "I apologize. I was drunk, and I'm checking myself in a rehab." Now, kudos to her for doing that, but it raises another
Kudos
question.
for doing what? Going there drunk or checking herself into the rehab?
Well, I mean, it depends how you look at it.
Yeah.
But that raises actually a few questions. So, first question is, if she was that drunk, who the hell let her out on the field?
You know that because we've done the first pitch at Red Sox and Twins here in Fort Myers. And the second you get to the ballpark, we can't even get into the field until they have a baseball kind of liaison. They come get you, takes you through security, make sure you are who you are. And they got eyes on you the whole time, and they're right next to you. So if you're hammered, they're going to obviously know that.
Of course.
And I'm talking, that's just in spring training. Never mind the all-star home run, like All Eyes is nationally televised.
And just take away those people that are, they don't want to be, they want to be mommy and daddy and keep them out of there. They're just kind of, okay, well, she can handle it. What about people close to her? I mean, she wasn't there by herself, I'm sure.
And it's not like she's doing one of her concerts. One of the most civic things we all do when we go to these baseball parks and stadiums, because a lot of them are funded by the cities, is stand up for the national anthem. And so everybody typically is standing for the national anthem, and they're all waiting for you to sing, and you show up drunk and then belt out. It almost begs the question, because we said we didn't hear from her, is this a publicity stunt?
Well, that's exactly where I was going, because, like I said, a decent amount of people know who she is in the country music realm, but outside of that,
I never even heard of her.
Right. So now people are like, well, who is this? And then they want to see, what does she sound like normally? It could be a very well-planned publicity stunt. I would hope not, but it could be.
Especially with the national anthem.
Well, that was one other thing I wanted to bring up. Another country music star, Parker McCollum, was asked by Pat McAfee if he would, why he's never done the national anthem. He says, I've been asked, but I've turned it down. And he said the reason was, it's your country song. It's the national anthem. And you can be a complete hero or you're a complete fucking goat, because there's no in between. Because if you butcher that song, people are going to remember you forever in a negative way.
Yep.
But if you kill it, you're an American hero.
What's one of your favorite renditions? There's one that I remember. Well, I remember who it was. I can't remember what it was for, but it sticks out to me like it happened yesterday.
What was that?
Smokey Robinson did a national anthem. I can't remember if it was for a World Series or a Super Bowl, but it was spectacular. I can almost vividly see players like weeping. It was so good. There's been some really good ones over the years, but you're right. There's no kind of gray area. It's either like it was really good or like I'm going to forget about this in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Speaking of patriotism and American flags, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up the recent assassination attempt.
Yeah.
And obviously that's something that's going to go down in history. I'm extremely happy that the former president is okay and showed, a tremendous amount of resilience immediately after that. I mean, if you actually look at what happened to him and then when he got up and the things that happened after in that iconic picture, I got chills just talking about that. That's almost, that whole act is almost what this country is all about. You can get knocked down, but as long as you don't quit, you can get back up and fight. And that was just unbelievable. But what really pisses me off about that is the Secret Service director or whatever that position is has come out and kind of almost started not making excuses, but saying the reason why that area was vulnerable to this to happen and saying how it was a slopey roof or something to this effect. And
when there were other snipers on a deeper slope.
And that's obvious.
Yes.
The problem I really have with it is, what are you saying? Are you saying our Secret Service men and women aren't capable of doing that? Because I've seen where they're in mountains in Afghanistan, hanging off a cliff or hanging out of a helicopter. What about the snipers that pulled off those 3 shots for Captain Phillips? Like, I know they were prone on a moving boat, but I mean, we can overcome almost anything. And to use that as an excuse really upset me, actually. And I'd be interested to hear what Secret Service snipers think of that comment.
Well, you're right.
Because their boss is basically saying, no, we didn't want you up there because it's not safe.
Yeah.
But it was safe for the sniper.
It's pretty much saying, you guys are pussies.
So what's wrong in this scenario? Or what's worse, the actual action of the attempted assassination or the cover-up?
Well, obviously, the act of an attempted assassination is something we've seen very little of in our lifetime.
That's right.
So that is unheard of to begin with. But the fact, aside from the cover-up, the fact that this person even got into that position that's the most egregious thing to me.
It just makes us look weak, and that's not the case.
Well, and you're right. And it's, I hate to say this, but it's almost like it was intentional.
I got that feeling too.
Because it doesn't make sense. There's too many things that don't add up. Like, who's walking around with a fucking ladder and a rifle and nobody says something?
At a presidential rally. It's not like he was going to Home Depot or, working on a house.
It's just come out yesterday that they were aware of this person. They had seen him with a rangefinder, which, what do you need one of those for? Then they determined this person was a threat prior to the president ever even taking the stage. At that point, then and there, that whole event should have been off. Why take the risk? Like, you can't take the risk of putting your agents on a minimally sloped roof, but you're going to take the risk of putting
slopey
a world leader. Yeah.
The rocket needs to be more pointy.
Yeah,
speaking of which,
yes.
that was Elon Musk that you saw that when
too slopey.
Yeah, it was he quoted that movie. What movie was that from? Shit, was that Michael Myers? Not Michael Myers. Fuck, I can't remember the movie, but he's actually going to be speaking at the convention this evening, I believe. That's a big endorsement.
Elon is?
Elon Musk.
No kidding.
Yeah, Dana White, Elon. Heard 50 Cent's going to be there. I mean, this is never seen anything like it.
Yep.
All right, so let's get back into some of the headlines. What are some of the other headlines we were going to unpack?
So, if you remember a couple weeks ago, we talked about Naples having the first AI robot dogs that are working on construction sites here in America.
I've reached out to a couple people at Suffolk, by the way. I'm working on trying to get them in here and getting Spot in here.
Beautiful.
That'd be cool.
So one of your questions you had asked is, does Spot help move materials around and things like that? And I came across something interesting also here locally. There is a company out of Australia called FBR, and they developed this robotic truck. It's called the Hadrian X, and it made the trek from Australia here to Florida. So here in Florida, this is the first place it is in the United States. It's currently in Fort Myers running some tests. And what this robot does is it's a truck with a 105-foot boom, and it's robotic, and it lays masonry block. So all of our housing here is concrete block housing.
Right.
So this is capable of doing 500 blocks an hour.
Oh my God.
The other part about it is because it's, unmanned robot, it can be out in the elements. It can work essentially 24/7. So they're currently in the process of putting it through a test to see what it does. And then once it passes that test, they're going to go ahead and have it build 5 to 10 homes. It's cool innovation. I'm curious as to how the QC part of that works because, with any machinery, anything that's mass produced, a lot of times you get little defects here and there. But what type of defects are you getting and how important are they to the integrity of the home?
Well, that's a good point. I like the aspect. So anybody that doesn't know, down here in Florida, a lot of times they'll pour the slab, and then the perimeter of the slab will be concrete cinder blocks that are then backfilled with concrete in the open cells in the beginning. So you're saying this machine, after the slab is poured, the trucks will come in with pallets and pallets of cinder blocks, and this this robot will basically just start laying brick and mortar, 500 blocks per hour.
Yes.
I got to imagine once that thing's dialed in, that would be a pretty consistent. I like it. I mean, we have a massive housing issue here in Southwest Florida for a lot of the, if not most of the blue collar trade workers, service workers are having to travel because they live in areas that are a little bit more affordable versus the areas in which they live in. So, and there's just not enough workers to be building all these homes. So I love the idea of having some type of autonomous machine that can speed up the process.
Yeah.
I'm not in fear of it taking our job. I think it will actually help us gain maybe other individuals that want to maybe change careers or improve their pay scale by not doing
that's
that
true.
type of job.
That's very true because a lot of times people get into a job and they're making good money. It may not be exactly what they want to do. They may, hey, I'm sick of lugging bricks around. I'm getting old. I want to do something different, but I like the company.
Yeah, that's hard work. Let me tell you something. You're laying brick out in summer down here in Florida. That is hard. And a roofer. Those are hard jobs.
Yeah.
Hard jobs.
What that does is it allows them to have an avenue to find something else that they can do for their said company or maybe somewhere else. Whereas before, maybe they were too valuable to move. Mm-hmm. And maybe they just got more money thrown at them or, whatever it was just to keep them there because they were needed.
So over the last 2 weeks, you found that there is now these autonomous machines that are robots, if you will, taking over little small elements of the construction process. And out of all the places they could be in the country, the first two that we've read about are in Naples and Fort Myers, which are abutting counties.
That's right.
Collier and Lee County.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yep.
Maybe we can reach out to this company as well and see if we can get them on a podcast. I'd love that.
I'm not sure exactly where it's at in Fort Myers.
What's the name of the machine again?
The Hadrian X.
That's cool. I wonder what that stands for or means. Is there
I don't know. It's Australian, so I'm not sure.
That's where the toilet water goes in the opposite direction than us, right? Put another shrimp on the barbie.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. What else you got?
What else we got? Okay. I think a lot of us have seen out on job sites new developments, maybe, or even old developments. You know, there's a lot of water here in Florida, and oftentimes you'll see people on their lunch break out. They'll go wet a line, and try and catch a fish. I'm sure. Yeah, I think you and I have both, in our lifetime, caught our fair share of largemouth bass.
I remember you latching up a monster so big when we first moved to Florida. It scared me. Remember that?
I do.
In Spring Run?
I do.
I couldn't believe it. I thought you were stuck on a rock.
Yeah. That was like nuclear mutant fish.
I'd never seen a fish that big in a pond like that. I mean, that was a record fish.
It was.
So go ahead.
So we're used to catching largemouth bass.
Largemouth Larry's ripping lips.
That's right. Well, you know, and I think our good friend Mike Greenwell would know.
Ooh, happy birthday, Mike Greenwell.
That's
Today's
right.
Mike Greenwell's birthday.
Happy birthday, Mike.
Gator Mike.
Because he's a professional bass fisherman.
Yep.
We're no longer allowed to call them largemouth bass here in Florida.
Allowed?
Oh, I shouldn't say allowed. They'd prefer if we didn't call them that.
Yeah, we're not far away from that, though.
You're right. So now they're called Florida bass.
Why?
Apparently, Yale University did a study, and genetically, the largemouth bass, because I don't want to get in trouble, the largemouth bass here in Florida and all the way up into parts of Georgia are genetically different than the rest of the country. So looking at them with the naked eye, you would never know the difference. But if you did a gene test, you would know, okay, this is a Florida bass, this is a largemouth bass. It's kind of stupid if you ask me, but that's their way of discerning it.
Where did you read this?
Tampa Bay Times.
No shit.
Yeah.
So this is a legitimate source.
Yeah. That's all I have.
So no more no more largemouth Larrys in Florida. These are Florida bass.
Yeah.
But everywhere else in the country is just regular largemouth.
Yeah. So they're like full mouth Frank or something.
What is it that you think makes that bass different down here? What caused it to have a different gene, or what would make them even look for that? That is so curious.
I don't know. I mean, what makes man here in Florida, Florida man?
Yeah, good
They
point.
got a little bit of a different gene.
Yeah.
Something going on.
That's true. That's funny. I was also told that the snook over a certain amount of time will actually change its gender. I swear. Cronin told me this.
California snook?
No. I think once the snook reaches a certain age, we'll have to look this up. Somebody's going to have to fact check this for me.
Yeah, they're swimming around the wrong reef.
What else?
So I learned a couple interesting things this week.
I like learning stuff.
So Steve Jobs.
Ooh.
Steve Jobs was a brilliant man.
I agree.
He had an odd thing that he would do to kind of detach himself when he needed to just kind of bring himself back down and, tame his chi, or whatever you want to say. You know, just center himself.
Yeah.
Any guess? Mm-mm. Yeah, you won't get it anyways. Mm-mm. Although you've probably done this before.
Smoke weed?
Maybe he did that. I don't know. He would go into the gentleman's restroom and he would take his shoes off and he would stick his foot in the toilet.
You're kidding me.
No.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Don't know what it does, but that's what allegedly he would go, and it was in an authorized biography of his.
Well, is there any more? Can you expand on that? Like, why does he believe that? Like,
I can't, because I haven't read the book. I just saw this, and I was floored. I'm like, who the fuck puts their foot in the toilet?
Oh my God.
And this is a brilliant man, no less, that
Yeah.
this was, it just goes to show there's a lot of weirdos out there.
That's unbelievable. So he goes into a public restroom or his restroom?
It was the company.
Okay. So he's in
the
his
company
office.
restroom.
So it would be like here at my architectural glass.
No. It was quote unquote public. I mean, there were other people who had access to it.
So that would be like me having a tough day, a lot of tough phone calls before we get ready to work out or podcast. I'm like, you know what? I got to center myself. Just hold on a second. I'm going to take my shoes off and go dunk my feet in the toilet.
Yeah.
That is so strange. But I'm definitely going to Google it and see what the effect is here. Not saying I'm going to do it, but I'm interested to read about it.
Yep.
One thing that I read about Steve Jobs recently that I guess I never thought of, and if you look at a few of these kind of ultra obsessive compulsive type of high achieving individuals, a lot of times you notice they wear the same clothes all the time. Like Steve Jobs is known for having that, like, it was like a black, like almost long sleeve turtleneck and blue jeans. And that's all he wore. And the reason he did that was to mitigate any fatigue of his mind. For instance, I get up in the morning and, I go through my routine. I shower, I brush my teeth.
You do?
Yeah, I brush my teeth a couple times, 3 times a day, actually. No cavities. Shout out Claudia Delgado. He doesn't have to worry about matching a shirt. Oh, I want to wear those shoes. What color shirt am I going to wear? The jeans. And I know that seems so mundane, but it does give you a certain level of maybe anxiety or mental fatigue for just a little bit. But if you think about that, you do that 7 days a week times, 15 years, he's never had that. Ever. So you just wore the same thing. I kind of like it.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about because
it's one less thing you have to worry about.
That's right.
In this world, we have to worry about a lot of things. And you're constantly looking over your shoulder and protecting yourself and covering your ass and trying to look forward.
Dude, how
Not
much
have to worrying about that.
How much easier would it be to pack for a trip too?
You wear, I'm not saying wear the same clothes every day, but if you go buy, you like those pants, you like that shirt, you buy 20 of them.
Right.
And that's what you're going to be wearing. That's your uniform. I really like that. Matt Sendier does that. Always got red, beige khakis. Never seen him wear anything else.
I think that is his uniform.
Yeah. But he's helping himself. He might not even realize it.
Right.
Yeah, that's one less decision that he has to make in the morning that he can preserve his brain power to do when he's at work. I thought that was pretty cool. I'm not so sure about the dunking my feet in the turdlet, but I could get behind wearing the same outfit every day.
Right.
For sure.
Well, I learned something else interesting this week.
Uh-huh.
So what do you feel is probably the most iconic, recognizable watch brand out there?
Rolex.
Okay. Back in Vietnam, the special forces were often assigned to TDY, what they call temporary duty. So it was somewhere out of where they were, maybe in town or wherever, and they made a lot of money doing that. Kind of like off-duty cops get their overtime pay.
Yeah.
So they would hoard up all this money and they would buy Rolexes. And the reason why they had Rolexes is what kind of blew my mind. It wasn't because it was the iconic watch and, they wanted to have it. They used it as currency. Because if they were ever captured and they needed to get out of the country, they knew every one of those people there would easily take a watch and get them out of the country.
Well, and they knew the perceived value of the watch. So if I needed to buy I see what you're saying. If I was stuck in a hostile situation in a foreign country and I needed a car, and let's say it was a piece of shit, it's for sale for $2,000, you could go up and offer your Rollie in exchange for that car because that person knew that watch has got to be at a minimum 10 grand.
Right.
And so this is a good deal, and it's very recognizable. I could see where that could happen.
Beats walking around with a briefcase.
You're right. Right. Plus, it also makes your Metallica shirt look so much cooler when you got a rollie wrapped around your wrist. But so Black Ops, Special Forces would typically wear a Rolex.
Yep, and that was just their insurance policy. It was currency. They were walking around with currency.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I wonder if that's still happening to this day.
Good question.
Even though there's other watches that are way more, they're not as recognizable. You know, like
Right.
Richard Mille or a Patek Philippe or whatever the fuck they're called.
Yeah, you fucked those up, but yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. By the way, if you're enjoying this, we hope that you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, Glass Guys, and subscribe and enjoy our podcast or our Hard Hat Weekly Highlights. I think this one was pretty good. What do you think?
A little pat on the back. Yeah.
A little pat on the back.
Yeah.
What do we have tomorrow, by the way?
Tomorrow we are going to complete that enclosure, wine enclosure. Will be the largest one we've done.
I can't wait to get finished photos and video of this thing. I mean, it's going to be spectacular. I mean, you're talking about a 6-figure plus wine cellar, not including the finishes inside, just the glass, the metal, the racking. Then inside it, you have the backlit onyx. You got the custom tongue and groove wood, the flooring, the AC. There's a lot of components that go in that. So if anybody out there is looking for a heavy glass, frameless or framed wine, chilled wine cellar, we'd love for you to reach out to us here at My Architectural Glass, especially if you're in the concept stage. I mean, that's really the best time to reach out, because if you haven't built one of these before, I know it's so cliche, but the devil's in the details. And when you just come in and talk or look and touch and feel, sometimes you can tease out those details that you might not have thought about, and that can save you a lot of headache and aggravation, you know, further along into the process. So we highly encourage you. And even furthermore than that, if anybody out there is contemplating building a new custom home or doing a remodel in your home, which, by the way, buying a home or building a home could be in the top 3 most important decisions you make in your life. You know, getting married, having kids, probably buying a home. I would say probably like in that order. And so if you want to do some due diligence, I say you're looking to do a custom home builder, deal with a custom home builder, ask for a list of their subcontractors and go meet a few of them. Ask the builder, who's your top 3 or 4 contractors in these areas? I want to go meet them. You can tell a lot about a contractor based on his subcontractors. And so if anybody ever wanted to reach out to us for a non-biased opinion, we'd be more than happy to help, as always.
That's right.
All right, well, we hope you enjoyed this week's wrap-up, and stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe, and stay tuned for next week's.
I got to go put my foot in the toilet.